Welcome to another episode of Beyond Tomorrow. Andrew Nida, Luis Param here, Asset Management Group, my man. How are you doing?
I'm good.
Good?
I'm good. Yeah. Excited about today's show.
And it is going to be a good show.
Yeah, we had a lot of good feedback from last week's episode, and so we're gonna do a part 2 of a 3-part series, and obviously a continuation as the months and years go on. But I'm excited to talk about today.
It's a tough one to talk about, though.
It is.
You know,
it really is.
I say it's tough. It really shouldn't be tough, but it's like when you're preparing and you're doing a lot of the research, it's like, man, I keep getting it wrong. It puts many areas.
It puts a spotlight on you personally.
Yeah, it does.
If you're really taking it seriously and really giving out the advice, but also taking the advice itself, right? It does put a spotlight on, are you doing the things the right way?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
The way at least, from our perception and understanding, the way that you're supposed to do it.
Exactly.
So before we get to what we're going to talk about this week, I ought to hit a little bit about last week, because last week in general in the markets was not so great.
Yeah.
Okay. You had the results of CPI and PCI. Did I say that right? CPI, PCI. Not so good. Hotter than expected. Which now this Wednesday, we know that Jerome Powell is going to be coming out and discussing, I'm sure, his thoughts on how he's going to interpret what the results were. And because it's hotter than expected, I think his, the sentiment around what he talks about is going to play a big factor into what our expectation is in regards to an interest rate pivot next, later this year, which, granted, my expectation, big flat zero for
You're
the
thinking
year.
none for this year.
Absolutely, I'm thinking none.
Well, you're on track, right? We started the year with like 7 or 6. I think it was 6.
I've been calling it.
And now it's gone down to 2. And last week with everything that went on in the markets, sentiment now went from the first rate cut being in June, now pushed back to September.
Yeah.
And I think the percentage of a 1% or more rate cut is now went from 70% by year end to down to 20%.
Yeah.
So if the trend continues, you might be right with your
I think
zero.
the only caveat, and I should get a mulligan here, is if they do something around the election. I think they may pump a rate a few basis points around the election. I think it's 100% not going to be justified. And then
well, there goes your September. That's your
right?
If it happens in September, there it is.
Yes, maybe you got to September.
You can't spook the markets too soon, too close to the election.
Maybe not October. give me a 60-day window starting September 15th. How about that? And then we're ready. So that's going to be interesting. So I think the next meeting is not until May 1st or something like that, the first week of May. So we'll see what comes out. But obviously something that's on our radar. Of course, last week too, you had international challenges, right? Once again, and I think the U.S. kind of put the markets at ease with their communications with Israel, just kind of, hey, set it back, don't do nothing too soon, too quick type of thing. But that's obviously not good as well. So last week was big and a big challenge for the markets nonetheless.
Yeah, it was. And, even though we're starting to get the first reports of Q1 earnings, and so they were mixed results, still positive. Some companies, still met their expectation, but, we saw big swings in real estate and financial sectors. J.P. Morgan down over almost 6.5% last week. Sentiment is still not that great. I mean, I think going back to everything we just talked about right now, the idea of maybe higher for longer, interest rates being higher for longer, just seems to be where the market is heading right now.
Yeah, and I think there's almost an exception and a tolerance for interest rates to not come down tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right? I think now, obviously, the markets have kind of priced that in, but this whole concern that rates could potentially go up a bit, too, is a bit fearful.
Yes.
So there's more of that knee-jerk reaction in the markets on, okay, hold up. CPI was not supposed to go this direction. It's now higher than it was a year ago. That's got to be problematic. What if rates go up instead of pause or pivot? You're seeing that reaction in pricing. So, we'll see what happens. Keep you guys posted if you stay tuned to our show week over week with just our understanding of the markets and our understanding of the direction of the economy, which I think is important to every investor. You know who did good, though, this past week?
Who's that?
Scotty Scheffler.
Oh, he did.
Knocking
He
it out
did.
of the ballpark. Let's go. Not the ballpark. Putting the ball in the hole. Got
He
it.
did a good job, right? What's it, the second youngest winner of the
Yeah,
Masters?
I think fourth youngest
Fourth,
to win twice.
That's what it is, yes. That's what it is.
That's not bad.
That's not bad. 27 years old to win the Masters twice.
Payouts just under $4 million. You need an advisor.
You do.
Come
Not just for
Other
today,
asset
but for
manager
beyond
group.
tomorrow.
Right. Right. Go Scheffler, man. Killing it. No, it is good.
It
That's
is good. It is good.
I couldn't imagine the pressure, I mean, at Little Green Valley Greens, I get nervous, okay? So I could not imagine I would be like, listen, if you guys are standing anywhere that's not the fairway, it's not safe.
Yeah.
You should be in the fairway if I'm going to tee off.
Yeah, no, the pressure of the Masters, right? Not just with the crowd, but, your competition, who you're playing against, right? You got Rory behind you. You've got Phil. You got Tiger, right?
Oh.
And there you are, just at the end of.
I ain't worried about them at all.
At the end of 4 rounds, you get to go home with the gold jacket.
I'm worried about 8-year-old Charlie. He's like 75 yards up on the right. Like, man, bro, you got to move. You're in the danger zone. Oh man,
Yeah,
now it's gonna be hard to reel it back in.
Yeah.
Okay, so yes, we got a great message today as far as just content for the show. We started last week with this idea that, hey, month of April in light of Easter, we were going to bring some of our core beliefs, right? The foundation in which we attempt to live by and fight and strive to live by every day to the podcast show because, well, reality sets in. There's basically a lot of baseline rules that apply to every area of life. One of those is finances. And so in light of Easter in the month of April, here we are talking about, first last week was generosity and just what the word says about how you handle your assets, your money, your wealth, and the reasons why you should be, hopefully incredibly generous.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the idea of, if you can't take it with you, right? I mean, we all have a expiration date at some point, so you can't take your assets with you. So while you are here on Earth, what are you supposed to do? Mm-hmm. And the idea of generosity is, the blessings that you have received, at being good stewards of those assets, we bring in and pass it on to those who may need it, right? Less fortunate, who just may need a helping hand. And so generosity comes in different ways, whether it's time, resources, financially. Today's show, we can talk about the financial aspect of it. But generosity, in our opinion, and not just our opinion, but from the value base that we subscribe to in Christianity, is not just a moment in life or a season in life. It's the foundation of your life. Mm-hmm. And it's a lifestyle that should be continuously practiced. And with generosity comes the realization of being gratitude, of being grateful of the blessings that are being blessed, that have been given to you, right. And the responsibility of those assets to steward them in the right way. And so the generosity leads to rewards, not just here on earth, but also our eternal treasures as well.
Absolutely.
So that's the baseline of generosity. But the question that some people have with being generous on the financial aspects or the financial side is, man, I'm broke, so I can't be generous, right?
That's a problem.
That's a problem. That's a
right.
problem. So, we want to talk about, if you going back to being generous, going back to the way you handle money, is understanding what the stewardship means and what the foundation of stewardship is.
Yeah, I think you said it right. That's the goal, is understanding stewardship. And what you said, though, I want to just something that just came to mind. Being broke, One thing too, you need to make sure is that you have the right understanding of what it is to be broke. Okay, now I know everybody listening. Well, I know exactly what it is. I ain't got no money in the bank. I can show you the balance. No, but as far as your understanding, not just of the financial position of being broke, but the temporary season of what broke should look like. Okay, broke is a financial condition, from my perspective, predominantly for a season of life, okay? We all go through challenges. We all face uncertainties. We all go through challenging seasons, some, in all reality and honesty, worse than others, right? Some people go through some seasons of life that are just treacherous. And Lord willing, those moments of being financially broke are just seasons when you're going to, if you can stay committed to some of the disciplines that we're going to talk about, you'll find yourself outside of that position in that season of life at some point. You want to not fall into this mentality of what I'm just going to say is poor. And hopefully I'm making sense here.
Yeah.
A poor mentality is the state of mind, you know?
Yeah, I agree.
And you probably know we meet with people talking about their finances all the time, right? And you can identify it. You know, it's almost like someone who has a negative, condemnation or I hope I didn't say that right, but
negative view or
negative view,
yeah,
right, outlook on life, and
Yeah.
it's just everything they perceive and understand and comprehend is through that negative lens, and I think that happens with money, and to me, that's a poor mindset.
Yeah,
right. You want to find yourself in that. Hey, if my situation is broke, it's okay to be here for today, but I got to keep staying consistent to get on out through it. What do they say? It's okay to walk through hell. Just don't make up a plate and eat there. Get your butt moving. Keep on going.
I've never heard that, but it makes sense.
Yeah. I totally made it up. Okay, so no,
but you're right. No, it's a mindset, right? Because kind of goes back to I was speaking with Shelly earlier today, and she mentioned that she was listening to a sermon or a podcast from Andy Stanley, and it was if you have this generous spirit. And you just want to.
I'm laughing. I just remember where that statement came from. Okay. It's a country song. Go ahead. Sorry. This is okay. We're gonna keep the show. But right now, we should probably say pause. Let's reshoot.
Yeah. No. But the mindset. You're right. It's a mindset, right? And being generous, and this idea of not having enough resources financially to be generous. This sermon that Shelley mentioned was someone who has this really passion to be generous with multiple different avenues, different charities, ministries that they want to invest in, but they felt like their little quote unquote little contribution to those missions won't go further, and so the idea is focus on one and give as much as you can as if you were giving to 20 or 30 different organizations.
Yeah, and
that could be done with a few dollars. Right, because that is the idea of, yes, you could be broke, but you're not poor, right? Mm-hmm. Because you still have the idea of, well, even if I'm not giving a lot, I'm still giving something. And broke, like you mentioned, broke and poor, the mentality behind it. But but either one goes back to the understanding of what we are supposed to do when you understand who the real owner is of these assets, if you're not taking it with you when you leave.
Yeah, I think you're right. The principle is stewardship.
Yeah.
And when you're thinking about stewardship, to me, it boils down a lot to the condition of your heart and your view of managing someone else's ultimately resource. Because to your point, to the individual who is broke and can't give versus the individual who has plenty that can give. Is it really a matter of the amount, or is it a matter of the heart, the condition of the heart?
Yes,
that drives the desire to give and to help and to be radically generous. So when we were preparing and we're talking about just being a good steward, one thing that just really struck me, and honestly it was something that I am challenged with a bit, is when you understand ownership, to me, understanding ownership and who the owner is dramatically changes the essence of the quality of your stewardship. I give an example of what I mean by that. You and I, every single day, and we can't take that for granted, get the opportunity to be a good steward of someone else's wealth for someone else's benefit. Okay? Not everybody gets that chance, right?
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people are in the possession of someone else's items or tools or equipment or stuff like that, but we do it with people's finances. And so we know what it's like to have a desire and a passion to work diligently hard for an incredible amount of wealth for the benefit of other people, okay? Mm-hmm. And let's just be honest. Sometimes when we do that, do you not find yourself likely taking more focus, more aggression to the details and the granular level of someone's plan than you do your own?
Yeah, yeah. It's I look at it as a privilege, right? That our clients are giving us the privilege and the honor of handling parts of their financial journey, and so that responsibility is taken with a heavier weight, unfortunately, than personally, right? And so I'm locked in, dialed in, 24/7. With our clients, and do we personally, if the spotlight's on me, do I take those same measures consistently with our household finances? If I was going to be honest, which I am, no.
Yeah.
That means just the reality of the fact.
I always say it's like the landscaper who doesn't have his own yard right. Everybody else is looking. I mean, it's popping. His from the streets looking rough.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no, it just happens, right? I mean,
the gutter guy who's got poor gutters. Yeah. I really do think it happens in almost every
every
vocation.
profession, yeah.
Every profession, and it happens to a lot of people, and that's what I was struggling with. And as I was like, well, is it because we don't appropriately identify what the owner is of our own stuff?
Yeah.
Maybe that's the issue. Maybe that's the issue is if I rightfully understood and understand who the owner is of the available resources that are within my possession, if I did, would I be a better steward? And I think there lied the struggle when I started thinking through that. And I'm like, man, maybe that's the goal and once again, of course, coming out of, I'm going to give him props here, but coming out of an incredible message that you and I both heard at church this past Sunday, the need and really the requirement to self-govern, okay, and to constantly remind ourselves that we need to step away daily, hopefully morning, if you will, and remind ourselves before the day starts, whose is this? And what is within my possession that I can be a good steward of today, consistently, to benefit the kingdom.
Yeah. We're how can I be a better representative and an image bearer of Christ?
Right.
And part of it with the resources that I have, am I representing Christ the way He wants me to represent the resources and the finances that He's given me? And so self-governance is huge, right? So when it comes to the financial piece, self-discipline, financial discipline is major. And so if you look at 1 Timothy chapter 6, great verses, but chapter 6 verse 7, here we go, verse 7, for we brought nothing into the world, and we cannot take anything out of the world. Again, going back to where it all lies. If we can't bring it with us, then while we're here on earth, are we managing it and putting it in the right tools and right areas where it needs to be done?
Rightfully said.
And
then this whole concept, when we're about to break out some verses that cover just financial discipline, saving, borrowing, diversifying, investing. We're going to cover a lot of these and apply scripture to it. But before we do, there is a misconception too, I think, that people have that, hey, is it right to try to create wealth here on earth? Because, I've heard that you should give all your money away, that the church wants all your money, or, that I should not have a lot of wealth, that it's wrong to build a wealth for the future. It's wrong to be rich because, money is the root of all evil. And the reality is it's just not true.
It's not there.
It's not there.
Yeah.
Okay. And so before we jump in, we want to set a foundation that Scripture is very clear about what it takes and what is necessary, and gives you the tools on what to do and how to handle your resources to be a good steward. Because when you're a good steward, you're actually benefited with more to be generous with more. Okay.
Mhm.
Now, that's not because you manage money well. Okay. It's because your heart's in the right spot.
Yes.
Okay. So that is incredibly important piece to make sure that we all know, because if you look here, Mo, it says, for the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. It is through this craving that some have wandered away from the faith and pierced themselves with many pangs. But as for you, listen to this: pursue righteousness, godliness, faith, love, steadfast, and gentleness.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Fight the good fight. So the reality is, it has nothing to do with money. It has everything to do with your heart and your pursuit.
Yep.
Doesn't matter if you're broke or if you're wealthy.
It's the desire, right? It's that relationship that you have with money. That's the issue, right? Are you pursuing money, and it's the forefront of every decision that you make? That pursuit, that drive for money itself, that's the root of all evil, because it steers you in the wrong path. The money itself is a tool. What are you using that tool for? If you're using that tool to spread God's kingdom, if you're using it to plant more churches, to support your church, support ministries, support those that are going on mission trips, right? If you're using it to be generous, that tool is being used properly. But if you're using it for your own pursuit, for your own self-centeredness, then that's where that's the problem. That's where the greed comes into play. And yeah, so that's one of the most, I believe, misquoted, misstated quotes of the Bible. Really, to be quite honestly.
I was thinking too that if you don't know if your view of money and your use of resources is in the right place, because it is a heart condition, then ask yourself where you're spending your money.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes your money kind of flows where your heart's at, right? And, if it's me, then you might find that a lot of your spending is like on you.
Yeah. It comes it comes right back this way.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not a bad, and well, I say that.
Yeah,
but
it's not bad.
It's not bad, right? I mean, we're not saying that you can't, quote unquote, spoil yourself or treat yourself to things, right? I mean, we all work hard, and sometimes there is that part of our life that's like, hey, I just want to treat myself to something nice, right? But if you look back at everything, are you giving away? Like, is your money being used in the proper avenues, in the proper areas? That's where it becomes an issue.
And if we follow, at least from our conviction, and we know that a lot of people may believe totally different, but for us, it's like, okay, if you're going to try to figure out how this whole thing works, let's go back to the beginning, to what the Creator said about how He created this thing to work. Yeah. That might be the best place to start. And when He talks about money, He talks about and gives us instructions that actually talk about why it's okay to have money, and and really to benefit from it, and to benefit generations from it, your own family. He says right here in that same chapter, let them do good, that they be rich in good works, ready to give, willing to share, storing up for themselves a good foundation.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, for the time to come. So
I love that, good foundation.
Yeah.
I love that part.
I love it. So jumping into some of these, let's start with just some disciplines. Proverbs is loaded with stuff, so I'm not going to read every single verse, but just to throw some out there. The plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance, but everyone who is hasty comes only to poverty. And then folly is a joy to him who lacks sense. But a man of understanding walks straight ahead. Without counsel, plans fail, but with many advisors, they succeed. Be diligent. Get some guidance.
Seek counsel.
Absolutely.
Seek counsel. You have
That's
to.
not a plug for AMG.
That's not
should
a plug,
be.
but it should be.
Bad,
but if you want, you could just subscribe and link and you can get to us. But no, but seriously, you seek counsel. Right. Wise people seek counsel. Mm-hmm. Right. And it's an admission of humility. It's an admission that you don't know everything. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't. You want to make sure you're seeking the right counsel. But at the end of the day, you seek counsel. You be diligent. You be steadfast. And you take all those areas with your finances as well. I
was just thinking, you and I were in San Diego, and we were I was thinking swarm intelligence, which is
No,
not
okay,
really
I know
a
you're-
tangible. It could be applicable, but it's just this whole concept that there's so much more accuracy when you bring together more than just one thought.
Yeah.
Which I believe, by the way, Scripture talks about that. Don't trust in your own understanding,
Mhm.
right? Because your own understanding oftentimes is flawed,
Yeah.
right? So seek counsel. And so, yeah, that just a natural discipline when it comes to your finances. You got to be diligent, okay, because that leads to abundance. And you got to stay consistent, and you got to seek counsel. But when you do, there's a lot here about, saving, diversifying.
Yes, still in Proverbs 13:11, wealth gained hastily will dwindle, but whoever gathers little by little will increase it. That's a great
You
that
know,
makes sense, right? I mean, you don't want to be hasty with your finances, right? You
Mhm.
don't want to just be haphazard with the way you spend with your finances, with your wealth, especially hard-earned wealth, right?
Mhm.
And those who, I think, in some aspects, those who gather it little by little, maybe have a little more respect and more
That's
ownership of it.
exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, the thought that came to mind is oftentimes, and this is it is kind of unfortunate because it doesn't matter, how much you try to guide someone. Sometimes they're going to do their own thing anyway. But the amount of plans that we put together and relationships that we have of people that have inherited assets.
Oh yeah.
How often during that season, immediately posting the loss of a loved one, are they, super locked in, super focused? I'm going to stay consistent. I'm not going to let this affect my life. I know this is more money than probably I could recreate through my own income and my own financial life. So I got to be wise with it. And then they immediately change their course of action and their course of talk and end up being hasty with it.
Yep.
So to your point, it is wild how the individual who puts the disciplines in place, once again, they stay consistent and steady, they have much more respect and regard for the wealth that they've created.
I agree.
You know,
Totally agree.
I love this chapter out of Ecclesiastes. Would challenge you guys to go read it. It says, I'm going to read the whole thing, so just bear with me here. Cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days. Give a portion to 7 or even to 8, for you know not what disasters may happen on the earth. If the clouds are full of rain, they empty themselves on the earth, and if a tree falls to the south or to the north, in the place where the tree falls, there it will lie. He who observes the wind will not sow, and he who regards the clouds will not reap. As you do not know the way the Spirit comes to the bones in the womb of a woman with child, so you do not know the work of God who makes everything. In the morning sow your seed, and at evening withhold not your hand, for you do not know which will prosper, this or that, or whether both alike will be good.
Man, that's good.
That's loaded.
That's good. That's loaded. Great visuals there, but it goes back to just doing, right? Not being paralyzed by which way the wind is going to blow, not being paralyzed if it's going to rain today or not, so I'm not going to harvest my crop. It's just doing, right? It's not being paralyzed by situations that are at the end of the day are out of your control.
Right.
Right? So, yeah, I mean those goes, if we go back to investing and planning, questions of, well, when should I invest? Is interest rates now high for real estate? Should I buy or not? Right? And you just get paralyzed by things that are out of your control, that you don't move forward, you don't take action. And so, yeah, I mean that is a great.
And how many people do that?
Get paralyzed?
Yeah, get paralyzed.
Oh yeah, a lot.
They're like, COVID's happening. We're seeing things we ain't never seen before. Take my money out of the market. And fortunately, we're able to coach most of our clients through it, but they have that reaction. Or, hey, it's an election year. Not sure what's going to happen. Little unsure. Put my money, make it conservative. And you're right. It's just even in the world that we live in today, how true is the advice from, literally thousands of years ago,
Right,
that are still applicable to today.
even generously giving, where how many of us pass by someone on the street, driving by or walking by, asking for some change or asking for a handout. I actually was prompted this weekend. Actually, guy asked me for. Actually, the first thing he asked me was, do I know anyone that's looking for work? That's looking for that's looking to hire.
Oh, wow.
And then when I said no, then he asked for for some money. But if you're being paralyzed by asking yourself, what's he going to do? What's she's going to do with the money? You'd be paralyzed and you don't do anything. The mission is to give.
Yeah.
It's not up to you to determine what he or she's going to do with those dollars.
Right.
Your job is just to give.
And I think you're 100% right. There may be moments like, you're going to commit to give to an agenda, to a mission, or to a ministry, and you want to be more cautious of ensuring that, okay, my money's going to the right place for the right purpose, for the right use. Maybe you want to be a more involved, if you will. But then there's also moments where it's like, if the Lord's in the Spirit has created this inside of you, this I can't think this moved you to give, I guess I should say. You just do it.
You just do it.
You just do it. And to this scripture here, quit laying by the wayside.
Yeah.
Quit being idle.
Stop being lazy.
Stop being lazy. And I know that's tough for the individual who says, well, yeah, but I'm broke. Like, I know what that situation's hard to find ways to give and to be generous. But this doesn't just apply to your financial life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I want to be cautious there and we don't have enough time to go on today's show because we are out of time. But you want to be able to be generous with a little so that you're also trusted with a lot.
Right.
Okay? And that's generous that goes well beyond just your financial situation. Okay? And I think that's also important to keep in mind.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Yeah.
You got anything else?
No, we have so much.
I can't believe this
right?
show. I can't believe it just went by that fast.
Yeah, we've got borrowing and what the Bible says about borrowing
Woo,
and investing,
interest rates, investing.
So we'll come back next week for part three of we'll have a special guest. So excited about that to get his thoughts on everything we've talked about today. I'm sure he's going to shed some light. Again, going back to seeking counsel, that's what we're doing, speaking to someone who's an expert in this field. So I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. And, man, it's been a pleasure. Once again, for you guys, hope you're enjoying the content and the message. I will tell you firsthand, it's one of those things that as you're looking through and you're reading through, it's just a reminder that there's still so much work that has to be done right here.
Right here.
Right here, right at home, staying consistent, doing the right thing. But hopefully it helps you out. That's the goal of the show Beyond Tomorrow, is to make sure that you are committed in the right areas to stay consistent so that you can benefit others, yourself, your family, and ultimately a higher mission and a higher call tomorrow. Stay with us. Subscribe to our show. We'll be back next week with a great interview, and we appreciate you guys being with us today.